Hey everybody, it's me, Rosalie. I'm not in studio today, but I wanted to make sure that I bring you more amazing content, music from around the world, conversations about mental health, psychology. Make sure to subscribe for more, and thank you for being here. There's a band called Demon Hunter. Sounds terribly dark. Who is Demon Hunter? This is an American Christian metal band. A metal band named Demon Hunter. Interesting. And this one's called Lesser Gods. Let's see what this is about. Just how much can these guys demon hunt, and what is this about? This song is called Lesser Gods. Interesting. It makes me think of verses in the Bible where God challenges other idols or challenges his people to try and worship to these idols, and calls out his people for forming statues and gods from the same wood that they use to cook their food over, and basically saying that there's no God beside him and that all these other gods are not like him. Lesser gods, if you will. Is that what this song is about? Let's find out. I could see when this came out, so many Christians having a heart attack because this looks so evil. And I think too, like your conservative Christian, this would look very backwards, very much, how would this be Christian? That skull-looking, demon-looking, scary-looking creature. But it also looks like it's made of branches or thorns. Interesting. That intro riff sounds familiar. I feel like I listened to a snippet of this the other day, and then I saved it in my playlist because I wanted to make sure I check it out with you. I love the church bells in the distance and that mysterious build-up. It makes me think of when Elijah in the Bible, a prophet from the Old Testament, from the Tanakh, when Elijah was on Mount Carmel, and he built an altar to his God, to Elohim, in contrast or almost like a direct challenge to the prophets of Baal, and setting it up with wood and a bull and even dousing it with water to prove that his God is supreme over their gods, and that his God would consume his sacrifice. And he used 12 stones fitting to the 12 tribes of Israel to rebuild the Lord's altar that had been torn down, contrasting it with Baal's prophets, with the altar of Baal's prophets. And he had challenged 450 prophets to like this showdown, basically. And he then soaked his wood and the offering with water 3 times, prayed, and then fire from the Lord came down and consumed everything, including the water. And it was this testament to the Lord. Our God is the real God. Elohim, their God, is the real thing. And this song makes me think of that, this idea of, there's a lot of religious lingo, obviously, from sacrifice and altar and bowing. A lot of things we find in religion, bowing, sign of reverence, and worship on the altar, sacrifice that was done, not even just in Christianity or in Judaism, but throughout history, often something that's done as a sign of reverence, a sign of surrender, a sign of worship and dedication and being devout. But then speaking of sacrificing yourself makes me think of also Christian lingo, because it speaks of crucifying our flesh, right? That ego part of us. Psychology, you might call that the ego. Christianity, it's called like your sinful flesh, right? Your sinful nature. You're supposed to crucify your flesh. And, there should be more of Jesus in the person. So, there's a lot of religious lingo here, which I guess is fitting if this is a Christian heavy metal band. But at the time that this came out, and even still, I could see a lot of Christians saying, this is evil. We don't scream and worship, and this is not godly. It doesn't even mention Jesus and stuff like that. But I do think that there is a big audience for people, God, or want to follow Christianity, but they don't resonate with your regular Christian worship songs. And this is the kind of stuff that gets through to them. I also find the lyrics pretty deep, because it isn't just your typical worship song. It's almost more of a piece that could open the conversation to philosophical and theological questions about who the real God is, and about this contrast between life and death, and those questions we have. That's, from a psychological standpoint, a human thing. Asking questions like, what gain is it to live or die? What's the point? There are some who say it's just nothing, it's just chance, it's coincidence, there's no rhyme or reason, no creator, we just evolved and it just is, and when we die we're just gone. And some people just find comfort in that. Other people, it leaves them with a gaping hole for purpose, and they ask, well, if there's no point, then what's the point, right? Why do right if we all end up in the same place, right? It brings a whole host of questions with it. Then you have those who have their faith in the afterlife and in heaven or reincarnation, and they form their way of living and their worldview and their way of going about life based on how they view death, right? If death is not the end, if death is perhaps a test, say purgatory, or if death is the consequence of how you lived your life, heaven or hell, and the choices you've made here, it affects how people live. So even just to say what gain is it to live and die is a very interesting, profoundly philosophical question that I think has plagued people, for lack of better word, has plagued people for as long as we know. This idea of what's the point. And then also posing questions such as, what is that thing in our soul begging why? What is that thing within me that wants to understand? If I find in myself desires that nothing in this world can satisfy, then maybe I was made for more than here. And it's a search for understanding why. It's a recognition that there's something in my soul that I can't quite put my finger on. It's a conversation about how things fall apart, how our shattered hearts look for solace. We all have had our hearts shattered. Most of us who've just lived life long enough, at some point our hearts will get shattered, and it leaves all these questions. And then in the chorus, it keeps coming back to saying, here we stand, which is a very religious term we often find in Christian worship songs. Here I stand, right? I surrender all. I stand before you. But then to say, to turn and face the odds. Is this about the fact that even when it comes to faith, there are a lot of doubts. But life, being unpredictable, leaving me with all these questions about my soul and life and death, it forces me to decide that I either bow to these lesser gods, I surrender to the passions of my human desires and the idols that I've built for myself, or do I face the odds? Do I look at the cards that I've been dealt? Do I dare stare doubt in the face? Do I dare consider the possibilities of the things that are hard for me to understand? What does facing the odds mean? I think it can mean different things for all of us, but facing the odds would often imply taking some type of risk, maybe, of taking that leap of faith. Sacrificing yourself, it's interesting because I take that both ways. Sacrificing yourself could be something but bad, or it could imply surrender, giving up your surrendering maybe to God, surrendering these questions you have and giving God a chance, perhaps. Maybe this idea of that's going to be the one that can fix that gaping hole and heal your shattered heart. It doesn't say all that, but it opens up the door for those questions. Is that where the comfort will come from? Is that where the answers come from about life and death and the point of it all? To then say, sacrifice yourself or bow to lesser gods. And that poses an important question, because what is a god? Gods can be many things to many people, right? For some, it's multiple gods, a vast array. For some, it is just one, the one and only. For others, it might be the Trinity, God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. For others, gods and idols can be so many different things, including actual objects, from actual idols and statues to the things that we idolize, ourselves, our beauty, our career, money, right? So many things that can become your idol. But from a Christian standpoint, it's this idea that these are all lesser gods. Just like Isaiah challenges those prophets of Baal, just like other scriptures where Elohim in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, addresses his people and says, go ahead, ask these gods that you've built for yourself. Tell them to prophesy the future. Ask them what's going to come. See if they can foretell you the future and if they can do what I can do. And it's this challenge of saying, I'm the real God. They know nothing. They're just statues made of gold. Or he basically calls them out and says, you guys have, like I said in the beginning, you guys have made statues of the same wood that you cook your food over. These gods are powerless. And here to ask, sacrifice yourself or bow to lesser gods, is perhaps saying you either surrender, you sacrifice yourself, you give up, you face the odds, you take a leap of faith, or you bow to lesser gods and you settle. And all around that question of what gain is it to live and die, which could also be a play on the Bible verse that says that there's no point in gaining the whole world and losing your soul. So maybe that's also another conversation about that. What's the point of bowing to these lesser gods, worshiping false idols, losing yourself, but gaining the whole world, all the material possessions and the beauty and the fame, but you lose your soul? Different ways we can interpret this, but it does open the door to a lot of very profound philosophical, psychological, and theological questions. And I think that's neat to me too. And I think that also will draw a lot of people to that discussion versus just your typical worship song that has Jesus in every second verse and puts off people that like to listen to metal. So very interesting. Demon Hunters. Demon Hunter, what do you think about this band? What are your thoughts on not only Christian metal, but like religious metal, or metal that's music bands that like stand behind a religion or a philosophy of life and that go hard like this? Are there songs, is there music that you consider dark? Is there too much? Is there a threshold where you say this is too dark or too much? Talk to me in the comments. Make sure to subscribe for more music from around the world, and I will see you on the next ride. Heyo.